Hi there, welcome back to my channel. This is Matt Heffernan, and we're going to have a very quick video today about the new beta release of my Tic Tac Toe game for the XCI adventure game engine. Of course, Tic Tac Toe is not really an adventure game, it's a puzzle game, but a lot of adventure games contain puzzles within them that you need to solve in order to be able to continue in your quest. So, to have sort of a more involved example of how to use XCI to do a puzzle that is a little more complicated than just find an item and then use it someplace. So using the XCI language, I actually created a version of Tic-Tac-Toe, which if you saw my last video on for the XCI beta release, the XCI beta release was also version 0.2, but here we're seeing the release notes for the Tic-Tac-Toe beta release. And there were a few issues with that old one, and mainly because the XCI beta release 0.2 itself hadn't come out yet, and it really depended on that in order to work. And now it's out there, and you can go and play this version of Tic-Tac-Toe, which now also has an improved AI. So you'll see here in the release notes a little talk about what we did, or what I did, to create Tic-Tac-Toe and make it work better by going to Wikipedia and actually researching how you do Tic-Tac-Toe. Here's the README for the actual Tic-Tac-Toe, and you can see this the actual state machine that's required to play a perfect game of Tic-Tac-Toe when the computer is playing as the O. Then yeah, you can see here is all the different combinations sort of fractaling in up to the 5 steps that the user can take. Of course, the user playing as X. And in any of these scenarios, if you place the 0 where it's located, the computer will always win or force a tie. And of course, if you're a competent human player, you'll never lose. But if you're not being careful and not play a perfect game, you could win, or could let the computer win. That is. And so here you can see also in the README some animated GIFs of the gameplay, including one showing how you can sort of make it lose. And you'll see here, and I'll show you a live demo of this here in the video. But yeah, that's what happens, is if you're not careful, you will lose. So to implement this and implement that big state machine, I pretty much rewrote all of the Tic-Tac-Toe XCI code. And as a bit of a refresher here for Tic-Tac-Toe, we can see here in the main file we define just a single zone, and the zone just has 2 levels. It has the main level, which is basically the whole AI for the game, and then a second level, which is the loser level, which happens if the computer wins, and then you get reminded about how much of a loser you are for losing the tic-tac-toe to an 8-bit computer. So what we see here for the actual AI is the most involved code. You can see here, it's a lot. We got how many lines of code here? We got over 1,700 lines of code. Of course, using the XCI language, I would recommend going back and reading the README file for XCI that goes into how XCI works, and watching the tutorial video series that I have in there, including one about this language itself. And so basically, Tic-Tac-Toe is a pretty simple game for a computer to do. And then if you could do it just from scratch in BASIC or assembly, it doesn't require a ton of code to do. I mean, you still have about this much code, but of course here in this instance we have the whole XCI engine running behind it too. And so just to program it for XCI, it's fairly simple because it's all just a bunch of if statements, and you can see here it goes down pretty deep. And we just sort of maintain some very basic states, which we have x1 through x9 for where x's get placed by the player, o1 through o9 for where o's are placed by the AI, and then a sort of a sequence set of states. So if we go in the first sequence, it sets state first, and then each subsequent time that this level gets revisited, it creates, it basically resets the state going from first to second, third, and fourth, and then finally clears all that state when it comes to the end, and then you're just basically in a draw situation and placing the last X on the screen. And then if you do actually lose to the computer, it will jump to the next level, which starts out the same way, goes ahead and uses those same states of X0, or rather X1 through X9 and O1 through O9 to determine where to place the X's and O's, and then we'll go ahead and draw these lines using tiles. You'll also see here that I've changed the tiles, especially here you'll notice slope down and slope up lines have a bunch of different tiles rather than just that tile 9, which was the diagonal line tile, and this was to sort of fake out a bit of transparency. So rather than overwriting tiles with something that just contains a diagonal line and leaving little weird spaces in between, I just created special tiles that will make it look like the line is being on top of the tiles, but really they're just, those tiles are just being replaced with ones that have lines across them. And so that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing of this game. This is all that code. It's not a huge ton of code. The language is definitely not made for doing something like this, but it shows that you can do something like this using this language just with basic if statements. So just a whole bunch, define a bunch of Boolean states, and you're doing if and if not statements based on those states. And then go ahead and doing things like putting tiles in or having embedded ifs where you're just setting different states and then going to levels. And that's pretty much it for the code. So to run it, it runs just like any other XCI game, just like the example game that comes along with XCI. And so you're just running that XCI.prg, which is the engine itself, and the engine will be looking for the a compiled game in the same directory. And there we go, we got a nice little title screen there. Not a lot to it, but that's still a bitmap, but you could change that to whatever you want. You can go ahead and fork this XCI repository, the XCI Tic Tac Toe repository. There'll be a link in the description. And all you do is do a new game. And then here, if you're smart, you start in the middle and you try to play, but oh, you keep trying to block that computer from doing anything. And here, I'm going to go over here. Oh, nope, he's blocking me there. And that's it. So you get a little draw and a cute little reference to a movie that hopefully you're not too old, or rather, or too young to understand. If you're, I'm hitting you right in the sweet spot with that if you're the right age for the Commander X16. All right, and then if you want to play again, just do a new game, and then say if you're not so smart and you start from the edge, and now you're giving the computer a advantage here. And now we can see, yep, yeah, lost to tic-tac-toe. And again, you can try again, and here's that diagonal line I'm showing you about. Looks like it's just being drawn on top of the tiles that are doing the X's and O's and the big hash that's in there. But we can see here I'm actually creating different tiles that have bits of the O and this white hash peeking out from behind a diagonal line. So didn't use any sprites in here. The only sprite is this little mouse cursor guy you see right here. And that's it. That's the whole game. So I definitely recommend you go ahead and go to the beta release, which is right here. You can download all the assets that come with it, which includes a copy, a pre-built copy of the XCI engine, and then all of the files that were built within there. But I have a little bit of instruction here if you wanted to rebuild this, or if you wanted to go back over here to the XCI repository and maybe mess around with some of that. If you want to add a fancy background to the different gameplay, you can go ahead and do that. Create your own tiles, whatever you want to do, or maybe incorporate tic-tac-toe into a larger game. And you can get all that here from the Readme for XCI, and keep watching the video series that I'm putting together. I'll have the third episode of that coming soon, and so please stick around if you want to learn more about what I'm doing. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, check out my old videos, check out my playlists, and you could even click that little bell for notifications. Please like and comment, and hopefully you stick around and see what I have coming up for you next. Thank you, and take care.